Sometimes I dread the thought of having to confront those in my contingency list, not out of fear or questioning my contingency's effectiveness, but because despite my preparations, I always do so, hoping that I never have to use them, as it would mean someone who had dedicated their lives to protecting others have one way or another turned to the dark side. Some of the people I've prepared for being close friends, or people whom I have a large respect for. And even if I'm prepared for it, that doesn't mean that I enjoy the idea of having to take them down. And recently I happened across someone else in my list, but not under the circumstances one would have expected. Sometimes, when Gotham gives me a moment of silence, and when everyone in my rogues gallery is accounted for, I'll take some time to see what could be happening in the rest of the world, searching through conspiracy websites and alien forum boards. Most of it is nonsense. The odd conspiracist who swears he saw a kid wearing a blanket as a mask rip an airplane to shreds. But there are times when something will catch my eyes. And this time it was word of a large, blocky monster who was attacking hunters near a field. It was enough for me to investigate the area, and during my search I found large footprints and tire tracks. It didn't take much to know who I was looking for. Deep in the woods I found him. Optimus Prime. He was kneeling down, talking to something. I thought I was being quiet, and yet he'd known I was there the whole time, asking me to leave. It was then that I noticed what he was doing. Within his hands lay a deer, one who had succumbed to a bullet wound it had received. If I had to guess, Optimus was saying a prayer for it. Despite his original protest for me to leave, I stayed and watched. As Optimus finished his prayer and gave the deer a proper burial, that's when he turned his attention to me. He was surprised, said that whenever he was seen by a human, they'd run in terror. I told him, with all due respect, that I've seen much scarier than a giant machine, after which I managed to sit with him, and the two of us talked for a bit. During that time, I learned what he was doing in that field. Turns out this was where he'd landed originally many years ago. It was where he'd taken his first step on Earth and gotten to admire the beauty of our planet. And it was where he would unfortunately take the life of a deer he hadn't noticed. It was the day he's learned how fragile this world was, and it was a day which would haunt him for years to come. Whenever he is able, he returns to this field so that he can remind himself of what he's fighting for. But this time he would run across a group of hunters who had just gotten a clean shot off, and Optimus, reliving that moment year ago, let the moment get to him. He would yell out to the hunters, scaring them off, which they most likely posted about soon after. He'd apologize to me, stating that he let his anger get the better of him. But I understood. He was more man than machine, as he held more sympathy for the weak and defenseless than many of the people I've met. I told him that anger is not a sin, that it is what we do with it that matters, but I also told him that he couldn't just scare off hunters. That said, it doesn't mean that something couldn't be done about it. So a well-meaning man would buy up the land, turning it into a nature reserve. Naming it Prime Park, Optimus is allowed to venture into it whenever he desires, promised that none of the animals within it would ever have to fear being harmed again. He seemed happy with this, and on occasion I would find him back in the reserve, just sitting there, admiring everything that happened around him. But this last time he wouldn't be visiting alone, as I arranged for someone else to be there too. A man who understood what it means to live in a world made of cardboard. The two of them together, men who have seen some of the most terrifying beings the universe has to offer, fought some of the most grueling and odd defining battles which almost claimed their own lives. And yet with all that strength, all that destructive power, one would never guess what they were capable of, just from a glance. The two just sitting there, talking, taking solace in what the other had experienced. It was nice, for a lack of better words. The two of them together. It left me without a worry, something I wish would last longer. but maybe someday. Someday I'll lay these contingencies to rest and never have to worry about tomorrow. I don't know if or when that'll come to pass, but for now, it's nice to dream.